What's good, everybody? We're listening to the Cephalopod, the DavyJonesLockerRoom.com podcast. My name's Sky, and I have come to the video dimension to vent my spleen over the last week. The last time we met, I was just a disembodied voice on a podcast, but also, the last time we met, the Kraken were actually doing pretty well for themselves. Obviously, they've gone through a little bit of hardship since then, namely that Vince Dunn and Jordan Eberle were on IR at the same time, which is a real knockout punch to any effectiveness that this team wanted to have. But it's all good, it's all good. They had a really good game against the Rangers, even though they got shut out. I thought they played that game about as well as they could. They rebound against the Preds, get a 3-0 shutout. Everything's gravy. And then, like at all times of the year, it all went to hell when they went to California. Early warning signs were that Big Save Dave decided that he was no longer a washed goaltender against the Seattle Kraken in a 2-1 loss, which was just so frustrating. I really, really wanted that game to be better than it was, and they just couldn't beat this guy. They just could not find a way around Big Save Dave. But that's fine. That's fine. They've got 4 games Thanksgiving week, and they're all easier than Los Angeles. Or at least that's the thought anyway. It turned out entirely different. First game of the week, they play the Ducks. They win it 3-2, but they only get that second and third goal actually, in the final period within 2 minutes. That's good that they can score explosively like that, but the big problem was you spent a good long time down to the Ducks, and the thing is, the Ducks deserved it. Seattle's defense was absolutely out of sorts, and it did not bode well for the rematch that was just a few days later. And oh boy, did it. Wednesday before Thanksgiving, they replay the Ducks, and the Ducks kick them up and down the ice. That defensive effort was unacceptable. Unacceptable, especially given how hard you actually crushed them on the shot totals. Just unacceptable. But it's all good, it's all good. You know, the Ducks aren't perfect. They're definitely not a contender yet. But, you know what? They can still be pretty good. They got a bunch of really talented players. And hey, right after Thanksgiving, you've got a supposed get-right game. 2 of them, in fact. That's an easy 4 points. The San Jose Sharks. All they really have is Macklin Celebrini and like Fabian Zetterlund, and that's about it. So what could go wrong? The answer is just about everything. First game against the San Jose Sharks. They score 5 goals. Great stuff. Shane Wright gets 2 goals. And there was a lot of really good stuff in that game, especially when they were on offense. They didn't give up on chances. They had plenty of opportunity to get up on the Sharks and actively test them, which leaves the fact that Philip Grubauer had a sub 800 save percentage all the more frustrating. The entire story of that game is Philip Grubauer, unfortunately. That's the thing with this guy, man. We have talked to death all the reasons why the Kraken fail when Philip Grubauer is on the ice. They don't score enough in front of him. They allow more shots than they would have normally. They don't seem to have the sharpness with Grubauer in net. Eventually, it's just gotta be him. That's the final hideous problem, is that ultimately he just doesn't hold up his end of the bargain. And in year 4 of this, I'm gonna be real, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't sit there and keep saying, well, you know, if you keep measuring his starts and you give him easy enough competition, this was the easy game. This was the easy game. The San Jose Sharks are not good. I've checked the numbers. They're not good. I promise you. Against the Kraken, they looked absolutely phenomenal. They got up for that game. Seattle got up for one of them, and Philip Grubauer didn't. Like, I could show you any number of goals. I can't actually do that. The NHL will come down on me like the fist of God. But I could talk to you about all of the goals that San Jose scored, and they scored a lot of them. They scored 7 on him. Man, 19 saves on 26 shots. That's a .731 save percentage. Dude, that's unconscionable. That's it. We're done. There is no goalie thing anymore. The answer is if you play Philip Grubauer, you lose. Or at the very least, you have a significant uphill battle to climb. And that leads us into the next game. That leads us into Saturday. Saturday, they didn't look much better, now did they? They get up there and just every last thing we've been talking about through the last 2 or 3 years. Tons of shots, but no finish. Nobody's getting to the net. The first 2 goals are surrendered on just nonsense. Pucks going in off of bodies because they don't know where they're supposed to be. Giving away the puck like it's just something to do. I'm sorry, man. There's just nothing here. It was just such a frustrating week. Such a frustrating week. Especially considering that this was 2 divisional rivals. That's 8 points you gave to the enemy. And now look where they are in the standings. Not good. And if you're worried about me just talking about the goaltending to death, no. There were already signs that things were going off the rails during the first Anaheim game. I was very shocked at how poorly they played the Anaheim Ducks. Absolutely shocked. They couldn't get out of their own end. They struggled to actively commit to checks. They couldn't win board battles, and that carried to game 2. I was thinking, all right, maybe this is just some weird off thing. They don't quite know who's actually going to be in for defense. So, they're just struggling a little bit. That's fine. People struggle. It happens. But it kept going into the Sharks game. Phil Grubauer was just miserable, but his defense didn't help. I'm sure the expected goals say that the Sharks only realistically had a very limited amount of chances. The reality is they were able to get to the net with very little problem. The heat map on Natural Stat Trick looks like they had near unrestricted access. That can't happen. Not against the Sharks, man. And it just kept going over and over. They were able to get shots out front. They were able to screen the goaltender. They were able to turn the ineptitude that the Kraken defense apparently has over this last week into something that they could capitalize on. And by then, it was far too late for them to score. I mean, they did get their goals. Jaden Schwartz and Jared McCann showed up, and, Brandon Montour and Matty Beniers had a pretty good weekend. Shane Wright had a good weekend. But man, now they're down with the Sharks. They're down with the Ducks. They're now in a position where they could potentially have a top 5 pick. And previously, they were like a point or 2 out of a playoff spot. It's bad, man. This is an unimaginably frustrating week. Oh my God. So, what happened here? And the thing I've been trying to impress through other podcasts and through our game recaps over at DJLR is that this defense has the concept of a plan. They get about halfway to what they should be doing, and that cannot be the case. Because, they go to the net, they collapse where they should, they block shots, they get in the way, they try to force stuff to the outside, but they never reestablish puck possession. And that's the killer. They need to be able to reestablish puck possession, and they can't do it, whether or not because their skating isn't explosive enough, or it's because they're just so out of sorts, which creates these second and third chance opportunities that teams are using to take advantage of them. It's frustrating because you can say, the puck's right there! Just take it and get it out of the zone. And they can't. They can't get those zone exits, which can't turn into transition for them. This defense is not good enough. Even with Vince Dunn, it still has a lot of problems. Some of that is, the personnel. I won't disagree with that. I think there are a lot of older names on this team that are struggling, especially when it comes to back checking, that really need a good kick in the pants. But the rest is system. The system is bad. It feels really, really inadequate for what the kind of offenses that they're facing. And they need to get around that. It feels like they have to outscore their problems, and they're having a finish problem. This is a cool stat. I want to bring it up because Hockey Reference is doing quietly some really cool things with this. It's called HDC percentage, and it's the percentage of high danger scoring chances that are converted to goals for the team, right? So the Kraken are actually pretty good at this. They're not the best team in the league, but they're 13th in the league. They've got about 179. They're tied with Utah for this total on the year. Percentage-wise, that's about, say, 18th in the league, right? Not great, but it could be better. They are 25th in HDC percentage. They are down with the Pittsburgh Penguins and Montreal in high danger chances that are going in. What's even worse is HDC-O, high danger chances that are going in for the opponent. They are 5th in the league at this. They are giving up more dangerous opportunities, and they are not getting nearly enough for their own. And so that's what's killing them. Their defense isn't good enough, and their goaltending can't compensate. And that sucks because that means that even when their goaltending is good, which Joey Daccord has had a bunch of really good games, they can't outscore the problem. They can't outscore their defense. And so here they are. It's really frustrating. Really frustrating. I really thought this team was better than this. And it gets worse from here is the I have no pleasure to say, all right, well, that wasn't very fun, but you know what? They get to play a bunch of really crappy East teams. Nah, dude, the creme de la creme of the Eastern Conference, they go play in the Metro, they go play both New York teams, the Canes and New Jersey, and then they come home and play everybody who's in a playoff spot in the Atlantic Division. It is gross. It's really gross. Man, this could get so much worse before it gets better. This could potentially have them in a top 5 spot in the draft. And that's not where this team wanted to be. They wanted to be competing. Even if it meant that they were a wild card team and they were constantly frustrating, that's better than just being dead. Like a lot of the teams that are looking for a top 5 pick are. This just looks like everything has gone completely off the rails for them. And I think a big part of it is that their defense isn't good enough. It's just whatever it is that Dan Bylsma and his crew are telling these players to do on defense, on back checks, on zone exits, it's not enough. Especially given how much that team loves transition, how much that team loves being annoying. At their best, the Seattle Kraken are an annoying team to play. At their very best, they are just casually zipping the puck around with no problem. And it seems like every last player, from the defensemen to the forwards, can't string a decent pass together. And I don't know how to fix that other than say, I don't know, sit a couple guys. It worked with Ollie Bjorkstrand, you might as well do it with other players. Because this is just awful, man. They are playing so bad. And now we're thinking about long-term future, and that's rough. What do we do with that? There's no reason to sit there and go, oh, well, they need to trade half the team and all that. It's just gonna sit there and have an even worse time. I don't want to have an even worse time than I'm already having watching Kraken games. I certainly don't want to have a worse time when Philip Grubauer hits the ice. So what do we do here? Well, from a short-term perspective, I think one of the things that they can do is to start metering the players that are on the ice. I think they should be more willing to promote the second and third line as much as they can in order to actively find an opportunity to score. Because guys like Ollie Bjorkstrand are having a good year, or at the very least, they're controlling the puck better. And the top 6 without Jordan Eberle looks rough right now. I don't even know what to say. Jaden Schwartz had a pretty decent goal, and Jared McCann's still scoring, but it's not enough. We need more out of their centers. We need more out of Matty. We need more out of Shane. And I think the best way to get their attention right now is to shake up the lines. Because you can't lose them through benching them. Not right now. As much as I think it would be probably in their best interest to bench them once or twice, you're still struggling. And if your center depth is still struggling, then you kind of need all the help you can get. As of right now, I think the best call is to just start really metering time. Really make sure that the guys who are actually playing well get to play. And the second thing I think they can do, or should try to do, is even as dangerous as this could be to a player's confidence, I think they should call up a goaltender from Coachella. I know that they have absolutely no cap space. I know that they are in a real bind to come up with what to do with the abundance of forwards on their team. But I'm dead serious. They need to make it clear to Philip Grubauer that if he's not going to play well, he's just not going to play. Like, this can't go on like this. You cannot play at a level that is sub-AHL. Like, if he was putting up those numbers on the Coachella Valley Firebirds, he'd be in the ECHL. He'd be in Kansas City. And I'm more than aware that if you're a big Coachella head, that the Firebirds are not having a great time right now, as it were. They're still a successful team, and they're still pretty much marked for the playoffs, but they struggled a little bit out of the gate, and they're below their normally pretty lofty standard. And both of their goaltenders are a part of why. Alex Stetska has a 909 save percentage, I think it was, and Nicholas Coco is sub 900 at the AHL. Not great, but even as they are, that's still better than what Philip Grubauer, who is getting paid so much more than either of them, is putting up at the NHL level. I am at the point where they can't do much worse. And that sucks. Ugh. It's been such a frustrating week for the Kraken. Anyway, coming up, like I said, it doesn't get any better. December 1st is just the winter of their discontent. They have to play all of these real killers from the Eastern Conference until the 17th, where they play the Sens, and then they get to play the Chicago Blackhawks, and then they get to play teams like the Vegas Golden Knights again. So when it rains, it pours. I guess the most frustrating part of that last week was that this team was good enough, at least in my head, to take 8 points out of those games. Or let's be honest and say that they still play like this and they win a couple games. You could at least get 6 or 7 points out of that. The San Jose Sharks are awful right now. The Ducks aren't much better. They're talented, but they're not much better. This would have been a very useful bulwark against what you're about to play over the next week. What you're about to play tonight. It's so frustrating because I know we're all kind of looking at like the long-term future of this team and what should or should not be done. And right across the aisle is the version of the team that I bet you Ron Francis tried to make. That's what he's been trying to do this whole time. And the sick part is I kind of get it. I really do. Sitting there and looking at the Carolina Hurricanes, who are up your nose all game long. They forecheck like crazy, and if they're not forechecking, they are sitting on the bench thinking about all the forechecking they're going to do. They built a team so good at 5-on-5 that they don't have to worry about goaltending, or they can ignore it. God, wouldn't that be a great way to live? But the way that Ron Francis built this team is that he forgot all the finish. And you need that finish. We've already talked about it. They don't have that finish, even when they get the pretty decent shots. So what do they do tonight? The big thing they have to do is break that forecheck, and they need to break it quickly. Because the Canes are coming off of a pretty rough stretch themselves. They lost their last 2 games because they played the Florida Panthers, and generally speaking, I don't recommend doing that at all if you want to have a good time. They got absolutely pumped 6 goals twice. And their goaltending isn't doing super hot right now either, which is something that tends to happen for them. Again, they tend to ignore goaltending. So what they have to do is convert. The Kraken have to test their goaltending and test it quickly, because they're already down a goaltender. They're already struggling with trying to keep pucks out of the net, so they just have to ignore everything that happened over the last week. Like, they could just go out there and just hammer them. Because the alternative is not great, is going on a 4 game losing streak and potentially be down with San Jose in a very short order. Very short order. Because then we're having some real tough conversations. And after a game against the Carolina Hurricanes, it's a little hard not to start thinking about the guy who previously worked there. Such a great time to be a Washington sports fan. It's just, man, I really felt like there was something better in this team, even if I didn't love all of the decisions they made. I'm certainly not loving the way that Chandler Stevenson's playing right now. Really not loving it. Even though he's having decent games on and off, he's getting these chunks of 3-point nights and assists. And it's not helping. I'm not loving how Shane Wright and Matty Beniers are playing. They're doing way better than they were last year, but it still doesn't feel like it's enough. And this defense just is not doing what it's supposed to be. Like, it's getting halfway there and then stopping. It's frustrating right now to be a Kraken fan. And if you're sitting there going, I can't do this, I don't blame you, man. This is rough. The only way out is through, and the Kraken are going to have to weather the storm as they play the Hurricanes tonight at 7 p.m. PT. Oh God, I really hope they turn it around. This is getting frustrating. This is nuts, man. This is just too much. Get well. Get well soon, Jordan. We definitely need a little bit of captain's magic. This season is so frustrating. But you know what isn't frustrating? PWHL hockey. Women's Hockey League just got it into its second season, first with actual team nicknames and logos and jerseys. I like pretty much all of them. I'm gonna be real, I don't get a couple of them, but hey, it's a pretty good start, and that means that in the coming years, they're likely going to start expanding pretty rapidly. Here's hoping that Seattle gets one. I think we all would really like them to get one, especially for some of those long-suffering fans out on the West Coast who've had, at best, maybe one team throughout the last 3 leagues that was even close to them. It would be really nice to have a women's league that stretches from sea to shining sea, or at the very least, past Pittsburgh, you know what I mean? Good luck to all teams involved. I really hope that they have the best season of their lives. After all, from your first season, you've got nowhere to go but up, as the Kraken can tell you. And I think we can call it right here for this evening. Thank you very much for listening. If you liked what you saw and heard today, you can go on ahead and check out our written content over at DavyJonesLockerRoom.com, where you get the best recaps, game threads, and preview and news for your Seattle Kraken. And if you like this, there's also another show called Squid Pro Crow coming out. It involves Zame Begg and Glenn Dreyfus, two very entertaining individuals. I really hope you enjoy them. And you can go on ahead and subscribe to the Cephalopod however you get your podcasts, both here on YouTube and on most major podcatcher apps. That's it for this week. My name is Sky. Thank you very much for listening. Keep calm and post Zoidberg when we win. And as always, go Kraken.